The transport shuttle docked at Orbital Station Kestrel 7 with a soft hiss of pressure seals. Park stepped off the ramp and into the busiest place she had ever seen. Hundreds of aliens moved through the arrival hall. Some were tall and covered in green scales. Others had 4 arms and bodies like insects. A few were so large that barely reached their waists. She was small, she knew this. At 160 centimeters, she was shorter than most human soldiers. Here, among the giants of 12 different species, she looked almost like a child. But her eyes were calm. Her steps were steady. She carried only a single bag over her shoulder and walked like someone who had nothing to prove. A holographic sign floated above the crowd. It read, "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy." Below it, in smaller letters, "Training the Warriors of Tomorrow." Had read about this place during her 3-week journey from Earth. The academy was famous across the galaxy. Only the best soldiers from each species were accepted. They trained here for 5 years, learning combat, strategy, and leadership. Graduates went on to command fleets and lead armies. It was the most respected military institution in known space. And now, for the first time in its 200-year history, the academy had hired a human instructor. Followed the signs toward the administrative building. Along the way, she passed training fields where cadets practiced combat. A group of the tall reptilian species with armored scales were sparring with long metal staffs. Their movements were fast and brutal. Each strike could have killed an unprotected human. On another field, they were wrestling. These massive creatures stood over 2 meters tall and weighed as much as small vehicles. They had thick fur, powerful tusks, and arms that could bend steel. 2 of them crashed together with a sound like thunder, shaking the ground beneath his feet. She watched for a moment, then continued walking. The administrative building was quieter. An officer checked her identification and led her to a large conference room. Inside, 7 beings sat around a curved table. They represented the Academy's leadership, 1 from each major species. At the center sat Commander, an elderly with faded chitin and tired eyes. He had 4 arms like all his kind, but he moved slowly now. Age had taken his speed. "Lieutenant Park," he said, reading from a data pad. "First human combat instructor appointed to the Galactic Military Academy, specialist in hand-to-hand combat techniques." He looked up at her. "Is that correct?" Bowed in the Korean style, a deep bend at the waist, hands at her sides. "Yes, Commander." "Interesting," set down the pad. "I must be honest with you, Lieutenant. Your appointment was controversial. Many on this council opposed it." At the end of the table made a low rumbling sound. This was instructor. He was old for his species but still powerful. Scars covered his arms and face, marks from decades of combat training. "I opposed it," said bluntly. "I have fought beside humans. I have seen what they can do." He shrugged his massive shoulders. "They are adequate support units, good with machines, good with medicine, but combat," he shook his head. "Humans are not built for combat. You are too small, too slow, too fragile." Several council members nodded in agreement. Remained still, her face showed nothing. "With respect," she said quietly, "I did not come here to argue. I came here to teach. If my methods prove worthless, you may dismiss me, but I request the chance to demonstrate before judgment is passed." Studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Fair enough. You will have access to Training Arena 7. Your first class begins tomorrow morning. We have assigned you 42 cadets from various species." "Thank you, Commander." "One more thing," leaned forward. "These cadets did not ask for a human instructor. Many of them share instructors' views. They will test you. They will challenge you. They may even try to hurt you." His compound eyes glittered. "What will you do then?" Considered the question. "I will teach them," she said simply. The council dismissed her. As she left, she heard his rumbling laugh echo through the corridor. That evening found her quarters, a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the station's training grounds. The room had been designed for larger species, so everything felt too big. The chair was like a throne. The bed could have held 3 humans. She did not mind. She had slept in worse places. Unpacked her bag. Inside were clothes, a few books, and a small wooden box. She opened the box carefully and removed a photograph in a simple frame. The photograph showed an old woman standing before a wooden post. The post was cracked and splintered from thousands of strikes. The woman's hands were wrapped in bandages, but her eyes were fierce and proud. This was Grandmother Park. She had been a martial arts master in South Korea. For 60 years, she had trained students in the old ways, the techniques that humans had developed over 10,000 years of warfare. Had been her last student. She placed the photograph on her desk and sat down. Then she activated her computer terminal and began studying. For the next 6 hours, she watched footage of alien combat styles. She studied their speed, their reliance on armored scales, their weakness at the joints where the scales did not cover. She analyzed their incredible strength, their low center of gravity, their tendency to charge in straight lines. She watched the fight with their 4 arms. She observed use their tails as weapons. She noted how each species relied on their natural advantages. And she found their weaknesses. Humans had no natural advantages. They were not strong like they were not fast like they did not have extra limbs like But humans had something else. They had 10,000 years of fighting enemies bigger and stronger than themselves. They had developed techniques to turn an opponent's strength against them. They had learned to strike where it hurt most with the least amount of force. His grandmother had taught her all of this. Pain is just information, the old woman had said. Fear is just a feeling, but technique is truth. Outside the window, the training grounds had gone dark. Cadets were returning to their barracks. Tomorrow, they would meet their new human instructor. They would laugh at her size. They would doubt her skills. They would think she had nothing to teach them. Looked at the photograph of her grandmother one more time. Then she went asleep. The primary training arena was enormous. It had been built to survive the most violent combat the galaxy's strongest species could produce. The floor was made of reinforced alloy, the same material used in warship hulls. The walls were lined with energy shields. Medical teams waited at every entrance. 300 cadets filled the observation decks above the arena floor. They had come to watch the new human instructor. Word had spread quickly through the academy. The tiny alien who thought she could teach combat to warriors twice her size stood alone in the center of the arena. She wore a simple gray training uniform. No armor, no weapons. Her short black hair was tied back and her hands hung relaxed at her sides. The cadets above her whispered and laughed. A group of made jokes about how many bones she must have. Some placed bets on how long she would last against a real opponent. One voice rose above the others. It belonged to Cadet, a young gnome throughout the academy for his arrogance. His family had produced military commanders for 6 generations. He considered himself the best fighter among the junior cadets. "My egg-clutch siblings could defeat a human before they hatched," said loudly. His 4 arms crossed over his chest as his mandibles clicked with amusement. "Why are we wasting our time here?" The cadets around him laughed. Looked up at them. Her face remained calm. She waited until the laughter faded, then she spoke. Her voice was quiet, but the arena's systems carried it to every corner of the room. "I am Lieutenant Park," she said. "I have been appointed as your combat instructor. Today, I will demonstrate the foundation of human combat philosophy." More laughter from the observation decks. Continued as if she had not heard them. Human combat is not about strength. It is not about speed. It is not about size. She paused. It is about understanding. "Understanding what?" called down. "How to die quickly." Looked directly at him. understanding how to use your opponent's power against them. She gestured to the arena floor around her. I invite any cadet who wishes to test this philosophy. Come down here and attack me. No weapons, no restrictions. Show me what you have learned. Silence fell over the arena. The cadets looked at each other. Was she serious? A female rose from her seat. This was Cadet. She was young but already one of the fastest fighters in her class. Her green scales shimmered under the arena lights, and her claws were sharp enough to cut through metal. I will test your philosophy, said. She jumped down from the observation deck, landing on the arena floor with a heavy thud. She stood a full meter taller than and outweighed her by at least 80 kilograms. Circled the human slowly. Her tail swayed behind her for balance. Her claws extended fully, 5 curved blades on each hand. I do not want to hurt you, said. There was no mockery in her voice. She genuinely believed the human was in danger. Bowed slightly. I appreciate your concern. Please attack when you are ready. Lunged, she was fast, faster than any human could match. Her right claw swept towards chest in a strike that could have opened her like a bag. Moved. It was not a dramatic movement. She simply turned her body a few degrees to the left. Claws passed through empty air, missing by the width of a finger. Before they could recover, his hand pressed against her elbow, the joint where her scales did not cover. His arm straightened involuntarily. Her momentum carried her forward, but now she was off balance, pivoted, adding a gentle push to the shoulder. Flew across the arena and crashed into the far wall. The energy shields activated, absorbing the impact. She slid to the floor, stunned. The observation decks went silent. Stood in the same spot where she had started. She had barely moved. She was not even breathing hard. They rely on their speed and natural armor, she said calmly. But speed without control is just momentum, and momentum can be redirected. Climbed to her feet. She stared at the human with new eyes. Then, slowly, she bowed in respect and returned to the observation deck. I stood up next. This was Cadet, not the largest of his species, but still massive compared to the human. He weighed over 300 kilograms and his arms were thick with muscle. Redirecting is one thing, rumbled. Try that with a. He dropped to the arena floor. The impact shook the walls. Did not circle. He did not study his opponent. Did not fight that way. He simply charged, a straight line of unstoppable force aimed directly at the tiny human. Dropped low. Her knee touched the arena floor. As reached her, she struck upward with her palm, a precise hit to the inside of his knee where the joint bent. This leg buckled, his charge faltered. His other hand gripped his wrist. She twisted her body, using his own momentum as leverage. 300 kilograms of muscle rose into the air, flipped over her shoulder, and slammed into the arena floor. The reinforced alloy cracked. A web of fractures spread outward from the point of impact. Emergency lights flickered along the walls. Lay on his back, gasping for air. He tried to rise, but his body refused to cooperate. The wind had been knocked out of him completely. Stood over him, she offered her hand. After a moment, took it. He let the tiny human help him to his feet. The observation decks were completely silent now. 300 cadets stared down at the arena floor. They had seen fight before. They had seen them win. They had never seen one thrown by a creature a quarter of his size. His mandibles had stopped clicking. His forearms hung loose at his sides. What trick is this? He demanded. What technology are you using? Some kind of gravity manipulator, a strength enhancer. Looked up at him. No tricks, she said. No technology, just technique. She gestured at the cracked floor beneath her feet. Humans learned to fight when we were prey. Everything on our world was bigger than us, faster than us, stronger than us. We should have died. She paused. Instead, we learned. She began to walk toward the arena exit. For 10,000 years, she continued, humans have studied combat. We have analyzed every movement. We have tested every technique. We have refined our methods through countless generations of warfare. She stopped at the door and looked back at the silent cadets. You think your size makes you strong. You think your natural weapons make you dangerous. Her voice remained calm, but something fierce burned in her eyes. I will teach you that true strength comes from understanding. And I will teach you that the most dangerous opponent is the one who never stops learning. She bowed once to the assembled cadets. Then she walked out of the arena, leaving 300 silent warriors staring at the cracks in the floor. 3 weeks passed after the demonstration in the arena. Word of what happened spread through the entire station. Cadets who had not been there heard the story from those who had. The tale grew with each telling. Some said the human had thrown 10 meters through the air. Others claimed she had cracked the floor with a single finger. The truth was impressive enough. Classes began to fill. At first, only a few curious cadets attended. Then more came. Then more. By the end of the second week, she had to schedule multiple sessions because the training rooms could not hold everyone who wanted to learn. She taught them strange things. She taught them to breathe. She taught them to stand in ways that felt wrong at first but made their bodies stronger. She taught them to fall without getting hurt. She taught them to see attacks before they happened. The techniques were difficult for species built for overwhelming force. I did not need to redirect an opponent's punch. He could simply absorb it and punch back harder. I did not need to find weak points in armor. Her claws could cut through anything. But slowly, some cadets began to understand. They started to see combat differently. They learned that their natural strength was not the only weapon they had. Not everyone was pleased with this development. Instructor watched from the edges of the training grounds. He had taught at the academy for 28 years. His methods were traditional. His students learned to fight the way had always fought, with raw power, with aggressive charges, with unstoppable force. Now cadets were leaving his classes to attend the human sessions. They were practicing breathing exercises instead of strength training. They were learning to step aside instead of standing firm. Consider this a corruption of true combat. On the 19th day, he went to Commander with a proposal. A formal challenge, he said. Academy rules, full contact, my best student against the human instructor. His compound eyes studied the old. Your best student is cadet. Yes. Has injured 6 training partners this year. 3 of them required medical reconstruction. Shrugged, combat is not safe. The human claims her techniques work against any opponent. Let her prove it against a real warrior. Was quiet for a long moment. He did not like methods, but he could not refuse a formal challenge. Academy tradition required that all instructors be willing to demonstrate their skills in combat. I will inform Lieutenant Park, he said finally. The challenge will take place in 1 week. That evening, received the message in her quarters. She read it twice, then set down her data pad and looked at the photograph of her grandmother. Cadet, she had seen him in the training yards. He was the largest in the academy, nearly 2.5 meters tall, with shoulders as wide as a doorway. His tusks were longer than her forearms. When he walked, the floor vibrated. Had never lost a match. He had never even been pushed back. Opponents simply bounced off him like water off stone. A knock came at her door. Opened it to find Cadet standing in the corridor. Was the only other human on the station. She was young, barely 20, and served as a support officer in the medical division. She had brown hair, worried eyes, and a nervous habit of twisting her fingers together. I heard about the challenge, said. Her voice was shaking. Lieutenant, you cannot accept this. He is not like the others. He does not hold back. He does not stop when his opponent yields. 2 months ago, he broke a spine during a training match. The cadet survived, but he will never walk again. Stepped aside and let enter. The young woman paced the small room, her anxiety filling the space. I have seen the medical reports, continued. I have treated some of his victims. This is not about teaching or learning. Wants to hurt you. He wants to prove that humans do not belong here. I know, said quietly. Then why accept? There is no shame in refusing a challenge from a student. You are an instructor. Your position does not require you to fight cadets. Walked to her desk and picked up the photograph. She held it out too. Do you know who this is? Looked at the image of the old woman before the cracked wooden post. Your grandmother. Park, she taught martial arts in Korea for 60 years. Every day she would strike that post 1,000 times, first with her right hand, then with her left, then with her elbows, then with her knees. Trace the cracks in the wood with her finger. The post was made of Korean red pine, very hard, very strong. Most people cannot dent it. But she broke it, said softly. No, breaking it was never the goal, set the photograph down. She broke her hands instead, many times. She fractured her knuckles, tore her skin, damaged her joints. The doctors told her to stop. Her family begged her to quit, but every day she returned to the post. Frowned why? Because she was not training her hands, she was training her mind. Turned to face the young woman. She was teaching herself that pain is just information, fear is just a feeling. The body will fail, the body will break, but the spirit can be unbreakable, if you choose. Was silent for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been burning inside her since she first heard about the challenge. Can you beat him? Can you really beat? Considered the question carefully. She thought about size, his strength, his complete lack of mercy. She thought about with the broken spine still lying in the medical ward. I do not know, she admitted. He is the strongest opponent I have ever faced. He is faster than he looks. He has no weaknesses that I have found. Then how can you fight him? Smiled a small, sad smile that made her look very young. My grandmother used to say something. She said that every warrior has two battles. The first battle is against the enemy. The second battle is against yourself. She touched the photograph one more time. Has never lost the first battle, but I do not think he has ever fought the second one. He has never had to push beyond his limits. He has never had to find strength he did not know he had. She looked at with calm, steady eyes. I have fought that battle every day of my life. Every day I wake up in a galaxy that was not built for me. Every day I stand among giants who think I am weak. Every day I prove them wrong. She straightened her shoulders. That is why I will fight, not because I know I can win, but because refusing to fight would mean believing I cannot. Stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly she bowed in the Korean style, a gesture she had never made before. I will be there, she said, in the medical team just in case. Nodded, thank you. After left, stood alone in her quarters. Outside the window, the lights of the training grounds flickered in the darkness. Somewhere out there was preparing for their match. He was probably lifting weights or breaking training dummies. He was probably laughing at the thought of fighting a human. Did not lift weights. She did not break training dummies. She sat down on the floor, crossed her legs and closed her eyes. Then she began to breathe. The Grand Arena was the largest combat space on orbital station Kestrel 7. It had been built to host championship matches between the Academy's finest warriors. The floor was 3 layers of reinforced alloy over a shock-absorbing foundation. The walls were lined with emergency force fields. Medical teams stood ready at every entrance with equipment capable of rebuilding shattered bones and punctured organs. Today, every seat was filled. Cadets from all 12 species packed the observation decks. Instructors stood along the railings. Even Commander had come, his old body settled into a special chair near the front. Word of the match had spread beyond the Academy. Officers from nearby stations had requested permission to watch the broadcast. A human fighting an informal combat. It had never happened before. The betting terminals had been busy all morning. The odds favored at 47-1. Some cadets had bet their entire stipends against the human. A few had bet everything they owned. entered the arena first. The crowd roared as he walked through the main gate. He was enormous, 240 centimeters of muscle and bone, covered in thick brown fur. His tusks had been sharpened for the occasion. They gleamed under the arena lights like curved swords. He raised his arms to the crowd, and the roar grew louder. Watched from the instructor's platform, his face showed no expression, but his eyes were bright with anticipation. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Today, the human would learn her place. Then entered through the opposite gate. The crowd went quiet. She looked impossibly small walking across the vast arena floor. Her gray training uniform hung loose on her frame. She carried no weapons. She wore no armor. Her short black hair was tied back and her hands were bare. Some cadets laughed nervously. Others shook their heads in disbelief. A few looked away, unable to watch what was about to happen. Walked to the center of the arena and stopped. She bowed then to the crowd, then to Commander. Did not bow. He simply stared at her with small, dark eyes. "I will try to make this quick," he rumbled. His voice was like stones grinding together. "But I cannot promise it will not hurt." Said nothing. She settled into her stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, hands open and relaxed at her sides. Her breathing was slow and even. The arena master activated the official timer. A horn sounded. The match began. Charged immediately. There was no strategy in his attack, no attempt at deception. He simply lowered his tusks and ran at the human like a freight shuttle on rails. The floor shook with each step. The air seemed to compress before him. Did not retreat. The crowd gasped. Some turned away. Cadet, standing with the medical team, pressed her hands against her mouth. At the last possible moment, moved. She did not step back, she stepped forward. It was such a small movement, barely a meter, but it changed everything. Suddenly she was inside's reach, too close for his tusks to hit, too close for his massive arms to grab. Her right palm struck his sternum. It was not a punch. It was something else, a focused push that seemed to travel through his entire body. At the same moment her leg swept low, catching his ankle. Had never been off balance in his life. He had never felt his center of gravity shift beyond his control, but in that instant he felt both. His massive body lifted. The crowd could not believe what they were seeing. 300 kilograms of muscle rose into the air, propelled by its own momentum and the precise application of a force it could not understand. Flew backward and crashed into the arena floor. The impact was like an earthquake. The reinforced alloy, designed to withstand the most violent combat in the galaxy, cracked like ice. Fractures spread outward in every direction, some reaching 15 meters from the point of impact. Emergency systems activated throughout the arena, sealing structural damage and stabilizing the station's hull. For 3 heartbeats nobody moved, nobody breathed. Lay in the center of a crater of broken floor. His eyes were open, but he was not moving. His massive chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Stood a few meters away. She had not moved from where she had executed the technique. Her breathing was still slow and even. Her hands were still relaxed at her sides. The silence broke all at once. Cadets screamed. Some jumped to their feet. Others sat frozen in shock. The betting terminals crashed as they tried to process results that should have been impossible. Stared at the arena floor. His jaw hung open. His hands gripped the railing so hard that the metal bent under his fingers. "What?" he whispered. "What was that?" Commander leaned forward in his chair. His compound eyes were wide with something that might have been wonder. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. They surrounded, scanning his body for injuries. Slowly, the massive began to stir. He blinked several times. He tried to sit up, failed, and tried again. Walked toward him. The medical teams parted to let her through. She looked down at the fallen warrior. Then she offered her hand. stared at the hand for a long moment. His pride told him to reject it. His instincts told him to attack, but something else, something deeper, recognized what had just happened. He had faced a superior warrior. He had been defeated not by luck or trickery, but by pure skill. He took her hand. With her help, climbed to his feet. He stood unsteadily, still dazed, still trying to understand how he had ended up on the floor. The arena was quiet again. Every eye watched the massive and the tiny human standing together in the center of the cracked floor. "What was that technique?" asked. His voice was softer now, not threatening but genuinely curious. "We call it Hapkido," said. "It means the way of coordinated power. The power was yours. I only provided direction." Considered this, then he nodded slowly. Finally found his voice. "This proves nothing," he shouted from the instructor's platform. "One throw does not make a warrior. The human used some kind of trick." "No trick," interrupted. His voice was still weak, but it carried across the arena. "She beat me fairly. She beat me completely." He looked at with new respect in his dark eyes. "I want to learn what she knows." The arena exploded with noise. Cadets shouted questions. Instructors demanded explanations. Medical officers tried to examine both fighters. The betting terminals finally gave up and shut down entirely. Through it all, stood quietly in the center of the destruction. She looked up at the observation decks, at the hundreds of faces staring down at her. Species from across the galaxy, all larger than her, all stronger than her, all faster than her. All watching her with new eyes. "Humans are small," she said. Her voice was not loud, but somehow it cut through the chaos. The arena slowly fell silent again. "We are slow. We are fragile. Every species in this galaxy can destroy us with ease." She paused and looked at the cracks spreading across the arena floor. "That is why we learned to be precise. That is why we studied everything. That is why we refined our techniques for 10,000 years." Her eyes swept across the crowd one more time. "And that is why, when we strike, we do not miss." She bowed once to the assembled cadets and instructors. Then she walked out of the arena, leaving behind a crater of broken floor, a defeated champion, and 300 witnesses who would never underestimate humanity again. 3 months after the match, the Academy was a different place. The sun had not yet risen over orbital station Kestrel 7 when the first cadets arrived at the training grounds. They came from every species, and a dozen others. They wore simple training uniforms and carried no weapons. They lined up in neat rows on the practice field and waited in silence. Walked among them, adjusting a stance here, correcting a hand position there. She spoke softly, and the cadets leaned in to hear her every word. This was the Human Combat Philosophy program. 3 months ago, it had been an experiment. Now it was mandatory for all first-year cadets. The Academy Council had voted unanimously to include it in the official curriculum. Had not voted. He had resigned from the council the day after the match. Some said he had left the station entirely. Others said he was still here, watching from the shadows, trying to understand what he had witnessed. Nobody knew for certain. Nobody asked. In the front row of cadets stood. The massive had fully recovered from his defeat. His body had healed, but something else had changed, something deeper. He no longer walked with the arrogance of a warrior who had never lost. He moved with the careful attention of a student who wanted to learn everything. "Again," said. The cadets performed the technique together, a simple redirection movement that used an opponent's force against them. 3 months ago, most of them would have laughed at such a thing. Now they practiced it with intense focus. His movements were surprisingly graceful for his size. He had discovered that his massive frame was not a limitation, it was an advantage. The same strength that had once powered brutal charges could now be channeled into precise techniques. He could redirect attacks that would have crushed smaller warriors. "Better," said as she passed him. "Remember, you are not blocking the force. You are guiding it like water around a stone. Nodded, like water around a stone, he repeated quietly. At the edge of the training field, Cadet watched the practice session with forearmed attention. The young had changed almost as much as. His arrogance had faded, replaced by a genuine curiosity about combat that went beyond his species' natural abilities. Had discovered that his four arms made him uniquely suited for certain human grappling techniques. He could control an opponent's body in ways that no other species could match. Had begun developing special training programs just for him. After the morning practice ended, walked back toward the main building. Cadet fell into step beside her, carrying a data pad filled with medical reports. Recovery is complete, said. No lasting damage from the match. The medical team was impressed. They expected much worse injuries from an impact like that. The technique is designed to disable, not destroy, replied. A dead enemy teaches nothing. A defeated one can become an ally. Smiled. Speaking of allies, the Academy received 12 new applications for human instructor positions yesterday. Word of your program is spreading. Nodded but said nothing. She had never wanted fame or recognition. She had only wanted to teach. They passed the main training arena on their way to the administrative building. The arena had been repaired, but the cracks in the floor remained. Academy Command had ordered a transparent seal placed over the fractures instead of filling them completely. A small plaque had been installed beside the damage. It read, "Here, humanity demonstrated that the smallest force, applied with perfect understanding, can move the universe. Lieutenant Park, first human combat instructor, Galactic Military Academy." Stopped to look at the plaque. She had not asked for it. She had not wanted it, but she understood why the Academy had put it there. Below the official words, someone had scratched something else into the metal. It was a single word in Korean characters, roughly carved but clearly visible. Touch the word gently, perseverance. What does it mean? Asked. It is a Korean word. It means the strength to keep going, the refusal to give up even when everything says you should. Looked at the cracked floor visible through the transparent seal. My grandmother used to say that is the true human superpower, not intelligence, not creativity, just the stubborn refusal to stop. They continued walking. In the afternoon had a new class to teach. These were fresh arrivals, cadets who had just reached the academy and had not yet seen her in action. They had heard the stories, of course. Everyone had heard the stories, but hearing was not the same as believing. 50 young warriors from 8 different species filled the training room. They whispered among themselves as entered. A near the back made a joke about her size. Several cadets laughed. Stood before them and waited. The laughter slowly died. "I am Lieutenant Park," she said. "I will be teaching you the fundamentals of human combat philosophy." A young raised her clawed hand. This one was smaller than had been, probably still in her first molt. Her scales were bright green, and her eyes were full of skepticism. "Is it true," the young asked, "what they say about you?" Tilted her head. "What do they say about me?" "That you broke the arena floor, that you defeated with one strike, that you can throw a like he weighs nothing." The young cadet's voice mixed doubt with hope. "Is any of it true?" Considered the question. She thought about all the stories that must have spread through the academy, each one more exaggerated than the last. She thought about the weight of expectation that came with such tales. "Some of it is true," she finally said. "Some of it has been expanded." The cadets shifted uncomfortably. They had hoped for a legend. They had gotten something more complicated. "But the most important part," continued, "is not what I did. It is what I can teach you to do." She stepped into the center of the room and gestured for the cadets to form a circle around her. "Humans are small," she said. "We are slow, we are fragile. Every species in this galaxy is stronger than us. This is fact. This cannot be changed." The cadets nodded. This matched everything they knew. But strength is not everything. Speed is not everything. Size is not everything. Eyes moved around the circle, meeting each cadet's gaze in turn. Understanding is everything. If you understand how force works, you can redirect it. If you understand how balance works, you can break it. If you understand how bodies move, you can control them. She settled into her stance, the same stance she had used against. I cannot teach you to be stronger. Your bodies are already stronger than mine will ever be. I cannot teach you to be faster. Most of you are already faster than any human. She smiled, a small, warm smile that transformed her serious face. But I can teach you to be smarter. I can teach you to see what others miss. I can teach you to fight not with your muscles, but with your mind. The young who had asked the first question raised her hand again. How long did it take you to learn these techniques? Thought about her grandmother. She thought about the cracked wooden post inn. She thought about the thousands of hours she had spent training, failing, and training again. I have been learning since I was 4 years old, she said. I am still learning now. I will continue learning until the day I die. She looked at the young with gentle eyes. That is the human way. We never stop. We never give up. We never believe we have learned enough. The room was silent. The skepticism had faded from many faces, replaced by something like respect. Now, said, clapping her hands together, who wants to learn how to fall without getting hurt? Every hand in the room rose. Began to teach. Outside the training room windows, the stars of the galaxy burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, wars were being fought. Ships were being destroyed. Warriors were dying on 100 different worlds. But here, in this small room on orbital station Kestrel 7, something new was being born. A different kind of strength. A different kind of power. The wisdom of a species that had survived against all odds, refined over 10,000 years, now being shared with the galaxy. Moved among her students, patient and precise, teaching them the lessons her grandmother had taught her. The lessons of perseverance. The lessons of humanity. And in the repaired arena beneath the transparent seal, the cracks in the floor remained, a permanent reminder that the smallest force, applied with perfect understanding, could indeed move the universe.